Pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Since we left off with him last week, it seems that Grabby has gotten grabbier. Those of you who were here last week will remember that Catherine Robinson, my friend who pulpit supplied, explored the age-old tale of Esau and Jacob, or as she more accurately transliterated their Hebrew names, hairy Esau and grabby Jacob. Much has happened when we pick things back up in the saga this week. Where we left them, Jacob had just swindled Esau out of his birthright for a bowl of stew. A few years after that, Jacob tricks his dying blind father Isaac and steals Esau's blessing as well. When Esau finds out what Jacob has done, he becomes enraged and Jacob has to flee for his life. But he finds his way to the house of his uncle Laban, marries Laban's two daughters, Leah and Rachel, and has a whole boatload of children. After many years, Jacob decided to part, and for Jacob and his family to go out on their own. To form, Jacob gets grabby again, takes a few things that aren't his, and ends up fleeing the home of his angry father-in-law. This is getting to be a pattern for you, Jacob's therapist says. This grabbing and running away thing that you do. But Jacob can't run forever. And in a bit of divine irony, as Jacob flees from Laban, he has to cross through the territory that belongs to who else but his brother Esau. Brothers haven't talked for 30 years, and remember when they last left off, Jacob had cheated Esau twice, and Esau was trying to kill him. Right before our Testament reading this morning, Jacob gets word from his messengers that Esau knows he is there in his territory and is coming to meet him. Uh-oh. This may not go well. Knowing that he will meet Esau in the morning, Jacob sends his family across to safety on the other side of the river Jabbok, and he spends the night alone. Well, not exactly alone. As we heard in the story that Mark just read, Jacob wrestles all night with a strange man. And when morning comes, that man tries to escape, but Jacob holds on to him and says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Grabby is grabbing again, but something is different this time. This time, Jacob doesn't just grab and run. This time, he stays in the fight. This text is one of the more ambiguous, enigmatic stories in the Genesis narratives. Readers disagree widely as to what exactly is going on. Is Jacob awake or is he dreaming? Is he wrestling with an angel or a demon? Roadside thief trying to rob him, or with his brother all come early in some sort of sneak attack? Is Jacob struggling with a literal opponent, or is it all metaphorical, Jacob's guilty conscience as he is about to meet the brother that he has wronged? But while we may be unclear as to the identity of this unnamed antagonist, Jacob is not. Whoever, whatever he is wrestling, it is God. Jacob names the place Peniel, Pen, Hebrew for face, and El, Hebrew for God, Elohim. For Jacob says, I have seen the face of God, and I have lived. Jacob, who has been grasping for anything that might give him security, Jacob, who has been from guilt and fear, finally meets his adversary face to face. Jacob sees God, meets God, and stays in the struggle. Because he does not run away this time, blessed. And that blessing that Jacob receives is twofold. Last week, I finished the latest book by one of my favorite irreverent yet inspirational authors. Her name is Glennon Doyle. Perhaps you're familiar with her writing or activism, or more likely you're familiar with her wife, the women's soccer legend, Abby Wambach. Glennon's book is a memoir called Untamed, in which she uses stories from her own life to acknowledge and those less than helpful and even harmful cultural myths about what it means to be human. One myth takes on is the notion that hard should be avoided at all costs. She writes, when I got sober, I learned that hard feelings are doorbells that interrupt me, send me into a panic, and then leave me with an exciting package. I had to stop numbing and blaming away hard feelings and had to start answer the door. So when I quit drinking, Glennon continues, I began allowing my feelings to disturb me. This was scary because I had always assumed that my feelings were so big and powerful that they would stay forever and eventually kill me. But my hard feelings did not stay forever. They did not kill. Instead, they came, went, and afterwards I was left with something I didn't have before. Self-knowledge. Everything I needed to know next was in the discomfort of now. So, she says, I have become unafraid of my own feelings. Now, when hard feelings ring the bell, I put on my big girl pants and answer the door. I imagine that Jacob can identify. All his life, when times have gotten tough, Jacob has grabbed and run. But that night by the river, Jacob faces the antagonist before him, be it God, an angel, his brother, or his conscience. He stays in the fight. God shows up knocking, and for the very first time, Jacob answers the door. We're not that different from Jacob, are we? When faced with conflict, difficult situations, painful emotions, we too often prefer to grasp for security or to run for our lives. Whether it's anger or grief, family conflict or heartbreak, painful realities about ourselves or the world in which we live, sometimes we too find ourselves on the shore of the river Yabok in a wrestling match with God. And like Jacob, when we stay in the struggle, when we confront realities that are painful, when difficult experience or feelings, and we choose to answer the door, we too receive a blessing. The blessing of self-knowledge, the blessing of wisdom, of the blessing of truly being at peace with ourselves. I said a moment ago that Jacob's blessing is twofold. The first part of this blessing is just that, peace with ourselves and our. And the second blessing of wrestling is peace and right relationship with one another. Maybe Jacob needed to face God in order to face Esau. Maybe Jacob needed to face Esau in order to face God. Maybe we can't separate one from the other. Maybe it's all one and the same. No one has ever seen God, writes John in his first epistle. But if we love one another, it lives in us, and God's love is perfected in us. Anyone who says, I love God, hates their brother or sister, is a liar. For one who does not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love a God whom they have not seen. The morning after this wrestling match, Jacob goes to meet his brother, Esau. He bows down in humility and maybe in fear, but he does not run away. But when Esau sees his brother Jacob, he runs to meet him, throws his arms around him, and kisses him. And the brothers eat together. Jacob looks at Esau, his eyes shining with tears, and he says, brother, truly, to see your face is like seeing the face of God. We, the readers, know that Jacob speaks with authority. For he is, after all, the one who has just seen the face of God and lived. So, friends, let's stay in. Emotions come knock, answer the door. When God meets us in conflict, let's roll up our sleeves, get down in the dirt, and wrestle. We will be changed. We may come away like Jacob with a new name, a new sense of identity. We won't emerge unscathed. Like our brother Jacob, we may walk away limping. But this I promise you, like our brother Jacob, we will walk away blessed. Thanks be to God. Amen.